been a while since I've done this, and I click this, and it doesn't. Okay, now it's green. Now let's go to powering up. Boo, ba ba, ba ba ba, boo, ba ba. Who's the man who will speak the truth? Boo, ba ba, ba ba ba, boo, ba ba. Lone candles, that man. Who's the man who will bring light into your life? Boo, ba ba, ba ba ba, boo. Ba ba, lone candles, that man. Who's the man who digs through human excrement to present you the gems? Boo, ba ba, ba boo, ba boo. Ba ba, lone candles, that man. Who's the man who kinda sometimes knows what he's talking about? Boo, ba ba, ba ba da, boo. Ba ba, lone candles, that man. Who's the man who has a scatterbrained, low IQ, and weak memory recall? Boo, ba ba, ba ba da, boo. Ba ba, lone candles, that man. Who's the man who plays games and complains that he sucks at them? Boo, ba ba, ba ba da, boo. Ba ba, lone candles, that man. Who's the man who has been accused of several attempts of bestiality? Boo, ba ba, ba ba da, boo. Ba ba, lone candles, that man. Hello, and welcome to Lone Candle Live. Today's another beautiful episode of Reply Guying with Lone Candle, and today we're talking about people reply guying to me. I did a review on the Odyssey movie. It's a beautiful review. It's on Substack, Medium, YouTube. You should check it out. It's in the chat of whatever this thing is called, Twitch, and in YouTube and Facebook, it's in the notes description. That's the YouTube link, but in there is a link to Substack or Medium if you prefer to read instead. But this is not really people responding to my review. It's responding to me posting my review on Facebook. My guess is zero of them actually read the review, so they're just responding to a couple things I said on top, which is problematic. Well, anyways, let's take a look. So this is what I said. Obviously what I really said isn't here, but here's just some stuff on top. By the way, this does have spoilers. I'm discussing the Odyssey, the movie. So if you don't want it spoiled, then check back after you've seen the movie. Anyways, so this is what I said. The Odyssey is a conservative movie emphasizing the experienced man who needs to come home and save society, save his woman, save his inexperienced boy, and defeat the fools trying to change the island's traditional rulers. Spoiler, it's about the horrible consequences of defying God and violating the sacred. It's about appreciating the good that we have and being sure not to break it. Burke looks upon this movie from heaven with a nod and knowing smirk. But hopefully he doesn't look as creepy as I do when I do that. But anyways, that's not the point. So anyways, yes, I saw this movie called The Odyssey. I heard nonstop for months, and maybe more than months, how woke it was going to be. And to my surprise, I see the movie, and not only is it, a pretty conservative story about the white man who has to come home and save society, but more importantly, the central, explicit message of the story is very basic and straightforwardly conservative. Not conservative like, oh, whatever Trump thinks, but conservative in a traditional way of, hey, we have a society out there. It's complicated, It's not perfect, but it works in a lot of ways. It does a lot of good things. And we don't really know how society works. We don't know perfectly how it all comes together to work and help us flourish and create some order. But we do know that there's a lot of chaos out there. We do know that without society, things could get much, much worse. And so this doesn't mean we can never try to change anything. Of course, we could try to change things, but we need to recognize that it does work in certain ways. We don't know how, and we need to make sure we don't break it. That is basically essentially boiled down classic Burkean conservatism, and it's the explicit message of the movie. Now, of course, you can take many things from the movie, but that is one of its straightforward explicit messages, and it's very ironic when this was supposed to be some sort of crazy woke movie, which it was not. I explained this and more in the review, but this is Reply Guy, so let's see what beautiful comments people said. I assume most of them were people lauding me. Actually, I already know it wasn't because I already read most of them. All right. So this guy said, LOL joking, I know Burke's roasting in hell like the guest of honor at a barbecue. And I said, poor Burke, why is he roasting in hell? I don't know where this guy's coming from. There's not a lot of content here, so I'm going to move on. Well, I decided to share a link here just about someone explaining what really happened at the Odyssey, because when I wrote my review, it seemed like very few people saw a big twist that I saw. But over time, more people saw it, and it was a pretty obvious twist. But it was obvious, but like easy to miss at the same time, which goes against the word obvious. But anyways, this Reply Guy-in isn't about that twist, so I'm just going to move on. Because my review just assumed the twist, but didn't really try to justify it, because that wasn't the point of the review. All right, so this guy said, it's about overcoming the distractions in our lives that keep us from reaching the things we want. And so, remember, I'm talking about the movie right here. The very top of my sentence is the Odyssey is a conservative movie. I don't know if this guy's talking about the movie or the poem. Later, you'll get into that problem where people are just talking about the poem, where I am the original poster here, and I'm explicitly in the first sentence talking about the movie. I don't know if that's a problem with this guy or not, but probably just something worth mentioning at the top. And so, yeah, there's some truth to that. Like, he may have had certain goals, Odysseus, and he got distracted by the different things on his journey. You know, that's a very important thing in life, to not be distracted, but also not really that interesting in the context of, you know, what I'm interested in is more political stuff, but that's cool. I said, yeah, there's a bit of that in there. And this other guy said, yeah, the sirens bit. Each peril is supposed to teach us a different lesson. Yeah, that might be true. Honestly, I do feel like they're talking about the poem. It's probably easier to get a lesson from the poem, from each peril, than the movie, where I don't know how easy you could really get a lesson. But, okay. I have only seen the movie one time, so it's hard to judge side things like that. All right, so I had a decently long conversation with Tristan Seaborn, and you know what? As far as internet conversations go, it was pretty civil. So let's see what Tristan said. And I don't know why I'm using his name, and I didn't use other guys' names. There's no rhyme or reason to that. Anyways, he said, it has nothing to do with the Judeo-Christian God. It's a Greek myth from thousands of years before Christ. Okay. Right? That's true. The poem, you'd have to like stretch and see some similarities of how it might possibly apply to Christ, you know, but obviously there'd be no author intent, and you'd be, you know, just trying to put that in, and that could be interesting. But I'm not talking about the poem. I'm talking about the movie. The movie came out in 2026 and was written in 2025. So it came out thousands of years after Christ. And of course, that means Christ could easily influence the movie that came out 2,000 years after his birth. Actually, probably closer to 2,000 years after his death. But anyways, so, you know, that's a nonsense point. Let's see what I said. I'm talking about the message of the movie that came out in 2026 and was written and filmed in 2024 and 2025. Christianity existed then. A message emphasized in the movie was respecting the sacred, not defying Zeus's law, and being careful not to break or destroy what we have by breaking Zeus's law and violating the sacred. That message fits in quite well with modern Christianity and Burkean conservatism. The creators put modern themes in a movie about ancient Greece. Not literally by mentioning Christianity or modern conservatism, but just as powerful messages that fit into those worldviews. Additionally, even ancient stories can have themes that gel with modern worldviews, even if specific beliefs were different. Although, I suspect the Christian conservative message in the movie wasn't from the original, but put there by the movie's creators. To clarify, it's not like the movie said convert to Christianity and avoid communism. It was just the general messages of respecting the sacred, don't defy God, Zeus, as referred to in the movie, and be careful not to break the good things in society, are Christian and conservative in nature. All right, he said, I'm unsure whether Christopher Nolan, the writer and director of the film, had those themes in mind when he made the film. According to Meta, Christopher Nolan is not actively religious and is widely considered non-religious or secular, though he grew up attending Catholic school and acknowledges a cultural connection to Western values. Critics and theologians often analyze his films for post-Christian or secularized spiritual themes, but Nolan himself does not present his work or personal life through a traditional religious framework. So you might recognize some framing and that suggests Christianity to you, but that doesn't mean it was the maker's intent. In fact, it's much more likely to be the opposite of that. Nolan's other works do not in any way suggest that humanity needs to respect things that are considered sacred. It's not much of a theme with him. So, here's the real problem. The guy obviously hasn't seen the movie, and so he's just talking about the guy who made it. You know, like if we haven't seen the movie, if I'm talking about some real obscure stretch that I'm claiming, then yeah, you could bring in the creator and try to think about the extent that he would put that in the movie. We don't need to do that. I've seen the movie, and I'm not making a stretch. The themes were overtly conservative and Christian in nature. And so this is just a distraction and not helpful when we're talking about a movie that's pretty clear and explicit. Secondly, you know, a guy doesn't need to be Christian or generally put Christian themes in his movies to decide to do that for this one. And again, the Christian themes are very surface level and general. It's not like it's getting into the details of Christianity or specifically saying worship Christ. It's that the themes are ones that you would expect conservative Christians to say. And it's the straightforward theme. All right, let's see what I said. Hopefully I was more coherent than what I just said now. I'm not talking about Nolan's personal beliefs. People can put themes and messages in a movie that don't fit their own personal beliefs. People can put one message in one movie and a different message in another. Why are you talking about the creator and his past movies and not the work itself? The work itself is the best evidence for what is in the work. The movie explicitly says we should respect the sacred. It is the final message of the film by the main character at the most dramatic part. Have you not seen the movie, sir? Yeah, the speech was amazing. There's a very clear final speech in the movie where he's laying out these themes that are just, you know, about protecting the sacred. Well, you know who cares about protecting the sacred? In modern society, well, Christian conservatives are the one who are going to more focus on that. He talks about having this society and how it was good and beautiful and we broke it. You know who focuses on, seeing why society is good and that it works and that we need to not break it. Well, that's a very classic Burkean conservative thing. And it talks about how he shouldn't have defied the gods. He shouldn't have done that. And, well, yes, in the movie they say gods or Zeus's law. Well, the analogy of that now is just God. And so it was pretty straightforwardly a Christian message there. And it could be so without, like, trying to convert you to Christianity. Because obviously we can have Christian messages without the Christianity. Obviously they wouldn't be like Christian, but they would have derived from how Christianity interacted with Western culture over hundreds or thousands of years. Anyways, where was I? All right. It's a film with multiple themes and messages, but key explicit ones fit with Christianity and Burkean conservatism like a glove. Spoilers below. The story culminated in Odysseus dealing with his extreme guilt. The film emphasized that it wasn't simply the acts of killing civilians, raping, and plundering. It wasn't just taking part in Agamemnon's aggressive war for power. It was the violation of the sacred. It was the violation of the gods' laws. Most specifically, Zeus's law. In Odysseus's mea culpa, he didn't simply confess to the slaughter, the pillaging, and destruction. He confessed to violating Zeus's law, for violating the sacred. And he didn't just confess to that here or there. Violating the sacred was the key core sin he committed. Defying God was the sin was the sin above all else. And his else was pretty bad, He was raping people. Well, I don't know if he personally raped, but they killed and slaughtered people and destroyed cities. So his else was pretty bad. Yet in his mea culpa, his great sin was defying God and violating the sacred. Wow. I mean, it didn't go, oh, this was bad because I killed a bunch of people. He goes, this is bad because I violated the sacred and defied God. Well, that's a fairly conservative message to focus on. Okay, from the very beginning, by tricking the Trojans with an offer to a goddess, a fake offering, he violated the sacred. All throughout, his greatest sin was defying God. You know who is most concerned with violating the sacred and defying God? Conservatives. The core message of the movie was unambiguously conservative. And remember, none of this is me putting it in there. Like, that's all explicitly there. Like, this isn't like, well, this is my interpretation. Like, this was explicit. Like, Odysseus says this in the movie at the most dramatic key part where he has his revelation of all he's done wrong. Okay? So, I'm not putting this in there. Anyways, Odysseus says, quote, "We lived in a world of palaces and trade, language blind to its beauty until we broke it." Holy shit. That is the definition of conservatism. I'm not talking about reactionary bullshit or whatever Trump supports equals conservative or the variety of things over time that some people call conservative. If conservatism as a political ideology has any meaning over time, as in a consistent meaning, it is to recognize the good in what we have, to realize that such good is not automatic, that we don't fully understand how we got it or how it works, and that we should be careful not to break it. And remember, Odysseus wasn't simply saying we broke it by literally breaking it with war, but we also broke it by violating our sacred beliefs and the rules of God. Note, the movie often said Zeus's law, not the law of the gods. Not the gods' law, Zeus's law. The law of the one most important God. That is as close to Christianity as you can get in a movie set in a polytheistic world. All right, he said, interesting. Do you suppose Nolan was trying to make the point that Odysseus was pretty much fine with the horror and devastation he visited upon humans, but only felt guilt when he realized his god might not approve? No, not really. He did feel horror about what he did, but the most important reason it was wrong is because it violated God's law. But I think it was both. Like, he actually felt bad about what they did and the horror they wrought upon the people, and at the same time, it was violating God's law. But of course, what he emphasized is the biggest problem was the violation of God's law. So that was like the big number one problem that he cries about at the end of the movie. But anyways, that would certainly be quite a message, and I could see how it would topically connect with modern American Christianity. I've seen posts from ministers who claim that members of their flocks confront them about the Beatitudes, how the congregants will get upset by the words of Jesus because they appear to be woke, and how they aren't relevant in the modern world. Do you suppose this is the sort of Christian being referred to by Nolan, one who is so wrapped up in his conception of his relationship with God that he ignores the message his God is trying to impart to him? I'm not sure if I answered just clearly yes. I'm going to look in a second, but the answer is yes. I don't think Nolan is the message is just for Christians, though. So the answer to this would be yes, but it's not like the point to people violating the sacred rules is just commenting on the hypocrisy of many modern Christians. That is a part of it, but it's bigger than that. And it's bigger than just Christianity. You could apply that to people violating essentially the words of Jesus. People often care less about Christians often care less about the words of Jesus, what Jesus actually focused on, which was love, by the way. That's pretty black and white. And the words of Paul, and instead just focus on whatever they care about in modern society. And so I do think that is violating the sacred and, defying God. And ironically, often in the name of God, they're defying God. But it also applies to people more in general. So it's going to apply to I would think it would apply to people, one thing, like trying to assassinate Trump, that would apply to those. Now, that was only like two guys. I don't want to exaggerate. That's like a huge group of people. But still, that people would go that far, or assassinating other political leaders and other political violence, which on the left and right is there. People doing that is breaking. I mean, our society is a democracy, and a part of that means you figure out what policy we have by peace. If you're doing it with violence, you're breaking the sacred laws of our democracy. Another thing is, Trump literally tried to stay in power after losing an election. That would have ended U.S. democracy, and masses of people supported him or are in straight up denial of what he very clearly did. He attempted to end democracy, and most people are in denial of that or make excuses. Holy crap! That is, throwing away the sacred, throwing away our most basic values as a democracy for the sake of, I really like Trump. That's breaking the society. People forgetting that communism doesn't work. That is breaking, the basic tenets of how our society works, where property is a part of that, and using it doesn't mean you can't have, welfare or taxes, but property and people trying to pursue their happiness is a basic part of how the Western world became so great, and really the rest of the world, including like China, is when they start implementing some levels of capitalism and forgetting that how important that is. And supporting these, radical left things, well, that is part of breaking society. And it could apply to civility in general. Just insulting people rather than having serious conversation. Thinking of your political opponents as the enemy when they are not your enemy. They're your domestic political opponents. All these things apply to modern society and how we are breaking it. Yes, in the movie, Odysseus broke society by ignoring the rules of God and tricking people using a sacrifice for God, and then, killing people for unjustly killing a whole bunch of people and destroying villages and cities and stuff, and raiding and all that good stuff. But how would you apply it to the modern world is all these other ways in which we violate both the principles of the Western religion, which is Christianity, but as well as principles of the Enlightenment and principles of democracy. And so the answer is yes, but it's not. I don't think it's meant to apply just to Christianity, because you could also apply it to not God's law, but the basic principles of our society, which are being violated left and right. And it is destroying our society. And people need to stop and just do whatever I tell them to do. Wait, what? Okay. Anywho, let's see what I said. Odysseus in the movie felt guilt for a long time. When he had his great mea culpa, he said he violated the sacred and broke God's law. Violating the sacred and God's law are something American Christianity conservatives are concerned with. However, it wasn't portrayed as Odysseus having a personal relationship with God and sensing his disapproval. They didn't literally make him an American Christian, so there were differences. No, Odysseus in the film isn't concerned about the woke or the words of Jesus. Those specific, more modern things are not in the film. I don't know. I feel like I'm responding to specific things in here that probably didn't need to be responded to with that. Whatever. Odysseus wasn't wrapped up with a relationship with God. Instead, he and his men were damaged by the hells of war and their own personal needs and wants that they ignored Zeus's law and violated the sacred. This could be analogous to what you are saying, but it would require reading more into the movie than something on the nose. You could say American Christians get obsessed with wokeness and other BS and forget what Jesus actually taught, similar to how Odysseus forgot the teachings of Zeus due to the pressures of war. This would mean American Christians are violating the sacred by getting wrapped up in the culture wars of today and forgetting the love for all Jesus taught. One further, this would mean American Christians are not being conservative and not conserving society, but instead breaking its very tenets, both Jesus' words and principles of democracy. None of that is explicitly in the movie, but it's a reasonable analogy. I don't know what Nolan intended. I think you could tell a similar story with the excesses of the left. My point isn't that they literally put most aspects of Christianity into the film, but that the explicit message at the end was Christian and conservative. The movie is conservative in other ways in that the lead female waits for her man to save her, and then in the end, the man comes home and sets things straight. These things are ironic when I was told again and again how woke this movie was. Okay, he said, I suppose we've gone as far with this dialogue as we can until I actually sit down and watch the Verschlungener film. I'm not familiar with this word. I don't know if that's a word or did he make that up. I don't know. The Verschlungener film. Smiley laugh face. But I'm going to have an interesting lens to watch it through now. Thanks for your commentary. Okay. See it in the best IMAX you can find. Okay, this guy says the rationalizations of idiots will never stop being hilarious. Of course, it's good. He's probably calling me an idiot. Most people who talk to me on the internet are calling me an idiot, but I don't know that for sure. And this person said, project hard. Oh my God. Oh, he probably blocked me, and that's why I can't like it. So that's okay. And this person said, project harder. Okay. I'm not projecting. I don't know. There wasn't much elaboration. Wait, why did I like that? Actually, I disliked that comment. Anyways, as I said, the fake Christy Christers even claimed to have invented Xenia. So Xenia is the principle in the film that is a real principle from ancient Greek, which is that it's part of Zeus's law. It's basically how they sum up Zeus's law in the film, which is, I don't think they use the word Xenia in the film, but it doesn't really matter. It's that when you have a guest, you should take care of them. You should always be nice to any guest or traveler. And the reason why, because it could be a god in disguise, and you don't want to be mean to that god. Now, that's the God's law they focus here. Obviously, that's not purely Christian, but when you apply it to modern society, that's just the historical thing they refer to. But more generally, they're talking about violating the sacred. They're talking about defying God and breaking society. So, yes, so in the movie, that's Xenia, but today, that's our modern principles that are being violating, and it's very easy to go, okay, movie Xenia, but what does that say about today? Well, what are our modern principles that we're breaking left and right? So I don't think that focus on Xenia is the own this guy thinks it is. Anyways, let's see. Well, that was probably the longest conversation. Some of these are going to get really repetitive. I even copy and paste from the piece I wrote that's in the description, and I don't need to read that over and over again where I'm copying and pasting from that, but I'll read it at least once. Okay, this guy said, ugh, it's not conservative. It's just about a hero's journey. I'm not a fan of how people are gender coding politics. Not all men are right wing, I suppose by modern standards, but really, this is a pagan Bible story. Don't take it so literal. Was I taking it literal? I don't know. I mean, certainly his final message I took pretty straightforwardly. I don't know if the problem there is taking it literally, but okay, let's see what I said. I don't think it's conservative simply because the main character is a man, but because in the most dramatic part of the movie, where the main character makes his big speech revealing what's really happening, he does so with traditionally conservative concerns. The story culminated in Odysseus dealing with his extreme guilt. The film emphasized that it wasn't simply the acts of killing innocents, raping, and plundering. It was taking part in Agamemnon's aggressive war. It wasn't just taking part of Agamemnon's aggressive war for power. It was the violation of the sacred. It was the violation of the gods' laws, most specifically Zeus's law. And then, additionally, that this supposedly woke movie had the main character be an older white man who had to come home and set things straight because of all these youngsters trying to screw stuff up, and his son, the son wasn't ready. The woman couldn't save herself. She was smart, but she couldn't save herself. We needed the traditional father figure man to come home and set things right. Well, that's not woke, and then combine that with the message of the movie, which is, very straightforwardly, traditionally conservative. People calling this woke need to check themselves. Anyways, before they get wrecked themselves. Anyways, I don't know what that meant. Oh my God, I said more? Okay, in Odysseus' mea culpa, he didn't simply confess to the slaughter, okay, I've said this earlier and already read this. Yeah, because this was copy and pasted from my piece on it, which is in the link in YouTube and Facebook and in the chat in Twitch. Is that what they're called? Is it Twitch? I don't even know. Anyways, all right, so we've read that before. You don't have to conservative. I think you might be conservative to believe in God. Okay, agree. It's pre-modern, too long ago to put a political label on it, in my honest opinion. Is that what that means? In my opinion? No, the movie's not pre-modern. The movie came out this year. So, I'm commenting on the movie, and it says that in the first sentence. I'm explicitly talking about the movie. So, no, it's not pre-modern. The poem is pre-modern. The movie is not. The movie came out this year. The movie is considerably different than the poem. I am talking about the movie. You don't have to be conservative to believe in God. You don't have to be conservative to have concerns about violating the sacred or even God's law. You don't have to be conservative to be concerned about breaking the traditional tenets of our civilization and society. But conservative and Christian ideologies more focus on these things, and the final message of the movie lined up with these types of attitudes. Both of them were emphasized together in such a way to make an argument for staying true to your society's traditional values so that you don't break society. That is a classic conservative concern. And it's one of those things, because we're talking about very classic conservatism at a very, simple, high level. Most liberals probably share that concern a little bit, but it's more focused by traditional conservatives. Now, these days, I think it's primarily, quote, conservatives breaking society, but I also don't know if they really could call themselves conservative in this classic way. At some point, the word conservative is broken because we're just using it to refer to, whoever supports the current Republican president, which, well, at that point, the word doesn't mean that much. Pagan Bible story? Serves the same function as a Bible story. Okay. Well, kind of does. Okay. Sure. Let's see. This guy said, no, it's a conservative story with a woke producer who is capitulating to the left-wing lunatics in our society. Well, if he's capitulating to the left-wing, first of all, it's a conservative story. Again, I think he's talking about the poem. He changed it a lot. The movie is considerably different than the poem. People who are big poem lovers, they hate the movie because he changed too much. I don't really care about that. It's a film adaptation. I understand it's going to be different. I'm fine with that. But well, man, those poem lovers, they are just furious about the movie because it changed from the poem. And so, yes, it's roughly the same story, but it's changed a lot. But it's not changed in a way that makes it woke. It actually maintains conservativeness and actually adds conservativeness. These concerns that are in the movie that are in the final mea culpa are not stressed in the same way in the original poem. So he made it more conservative than the original poem. Anyways, the original story is based on completely different morals and worldviews than modern conservatism. The creators of the movie chose to make the themes and final messages of the movie fit well within Christian and Burkean conservatism. There's not much at all woke in the movie, unless woke is simply choosing to do a diverse cast in a movie that makes little attempt to be historically accurate in the first place while doing a fictional story. It's not like the races of the characters was the only historically inaccurate thing. So the point I'm making there is I know people are saying it's woke just because of the cast. And first of all, you could decide, you know what, I feel like we need to offer opportunities for everyone, and we need to make a statement by having black people play these traditional Greek roles, and then that would be woke. But you could also just decide, oh yeah, we're not trying to make it historically inaccurate, so the cast doesn't matter. I mean, the race of the cast doesn't matter because it's a fictional story, and while it's set in a real historical time, we're making tons of stuff historically inaccurate based on that time. So I don't know why we would get stuck up on race. And so once you're not making it historically inaccurate, which I would prefer it be historically accurate, but once they made that decision, the races being wrong, what the people look like being wrong, it's kind of just one more thing that's wrong. A little more noticeable and jarring than like weapons being wrong, but it's not that big of a deal. And I don't think by itself makes the whole movie woke, just because a movie that, again, is not historically accurate in the first place to the setting of the time, chose to make that one more thing that's not historically accurate. I don't think that's a good argument for saying the whole movie's woke. Especially when you watch the movie, and it's very traditionally conservative story. They maintain the conservative story, and they added and emphasized a more modern conservative message, which wasn't in the poem. So for whatever reason, they chose to emphasize a conservative message. Again, more Burkean conservatism, but it's also a conservative Christian message. Okay, this person said they inserted modern day woke theology into an ancient story. Helen of Troy as a marginally good-looking black woman? What a joke. What's next? John, I don't know who that is, as LMK? Dylan Mulvaney as Marilyn Monroe? So he clearly just thinks it's woke because of the cast, ignoring everything else. Probably hasn't even seen the movie, so he has no idea how conservative it is. And then his examples are, on its face, ridiculous. Let's get real. Okay, Odysseus is a fictional character. But it is set in a historical time, but it is inherently fictional. A. B. It's very long time ago. It's ancient Greece. Okay, so this isn't like our own history. Okay, so A, fictional story. B, very, very ancient, which I think is mitigating when you get the race of the characters wrong. But C, and these kind of work together. And C, it's not historically accurate at all. They got all sorts of things wrong based on what things would have looked like. And so I don't know why you would care so much about the race of the characters when everything else was wrong. And so when everything is wrong anyways, when it's not really about our own society, because yeah, if you if you made a more recent character not look anything like that character, it would be more jarring, more like, what? Why is MLK an Asian guy? Why is MLK white? That'd be really weird, because like this is a guy we know. He's in our history. But when you go, once it's a real ancient story or ancient myth, I do think it's less jarring. And again, it wasn't accurate in the first place. So this is just one of the many things that are inaccurate. All right, so let's see what I said there. Have you seen the movie? There is no woke theology in it. What they did insert into it was Burkean conservative ideas and Christian values, which is far from woke. The movie is not accurate to the historical setting in many ways, including race. Having the wrong races is just one more ahistorical thing, not woke theology. Again, having Helen not be as attractive as you'd like isn't the same as woke theology. I'd prefer her to be an attractive-looking Greek woman or a hot blonde, but I was still able to enjoy the movie and notice its explicit conservative messages. In the movie, the war was really launched for greed, power, and glory, so the actual attractiveness of the woman was war propaganda and myth. Which means in the story of the movie, that wasn't the reason they went to war. They went to war for power and glory. And the woman thing was just an excuse. Which means when they say they stole my woman and she's the most attractive woman, that's propaganda and myth. Which then means it actually fits the story for her not to be the most beautiful woman to ever lived. Because that was all a lie. So it doesn't even break the story, at least in the movie, because that was the story in the movie. Thus, she doesn't need to be super beautiful. That said, and despite some scars, Helen looked pretty good in the movie. The memes I've seen are misleading. Yeah, all the memes you see are either her from a different movie or her playing a different character, although her twin. But, they did a froze frame when she's in the throes of passion, looking all weird, and they paused it right there. Like, that's not how you judge the beauty of a woman, all right? What is this guy, gay? Doesn't know how to judge the beauty of a woman? I'm just going to find when they look the weirdest and pause there and go, let's judge this picture. No, that's utter nonsense. Utter nonsense. All right. MLK and Marilyn Monroe are recent historical figures. The Odyssey is ancient fiction. The comparison is redonk, which is short for ridiculous. All right, he said, I was just following the lead of the original post, replying to the author's statement. The Odyssey is a conservative movie emphasizing the experienced man who needs to come home and save society, save his woman, save his inexperienced boy, and defeat the fools trying to change the island's traditional rulers. Well, first of all, the original post said that and then also said about the message. You don't get to just take parts of it. That all goes together, it would still be weird that people call it woke when the story was inherently conservative. But, the more powerful thing is them together. And of course, and of the two, the more powerful thing is the message. And the reason I came home and decided to write a review saying it's conservative was because of the message at the end. And this was more an addition. And there's some synergy there too, because it makes it more powerful with the synergy of them together than just adding them. Anyways, whether to not it is conservative story is not relevant. Whatever kind of story you think it was changed. By changing the nature of the characters, i.e. black woman for Helena Troy, to suit modern woke sensibilities. So, we don't know why she was changed. We don't know if it really was changed for woke sensibilities. There are reasons to do a diverse cast other than wokeness. Unless your definition of wokeness is so wide to basically conclude everything involving race or gender you don't like, in which case your definition is nonsense. And another thing, that was like one aspect of the movie. Like it didn't overpower. It doesn't cancel out that the story was inherently conservative and that the message was straightforward and explicitly conservative and Christian. That the race of the character does not cancel that out. And at some point, if you're that obsessed with race, whoa, you need to really think about your life and about your worldview, because what are you doing, dude? It's not that important. Again, I agree. I would prefer, in extent, I agree that the movie, I would prefer an Odyssey where I don't care about the poem. But I do care about the historical setting. They should either have chose Homer's time or the time of the Trojan War, if it actually happened. We don't know for sure. But if it did, and try to make everything as accurate as possible, including what people look like. But that's not the movie they chose. And it doesn't single-handedly ruin the movie, and nor does that make it woke theology. Nonsense. All right. I was talking about the story, themes, and messages in the movie, not the original. The movie has a distinctly conservative message. It's very common for fiction stories to be played by people who look like the present society. Yeah, it's not like that's a new thing. Having people of different races isn't automatically woke. I've seen the movie. It doesn't come off as woke, and I don't think we can assume a black Helen of Troy is automatically woke. And even if that was his motivations, it doesn't define the entire movie. The story culminated in Odysseus dealing with his extreme guilt. The film emphasized that it wasn't simply the acts of killing innocents, raping, and plundering. It wasn't just taking part in Agamemnon's aggressive war for power. It was the violation of the sacred. It was the violation of the gods' laws, and most specifically, Zeus's law. Okay, this is me copy and paste what I've already read. And this is in my actual review, which you can read it there. All right. So, I guess I responded again to something. You are comparing a relatively recent historical figure to a fictional character from a vastly different society and from thousands of years ago. It would be far more jarring to have someone... It'd be far more jarring to have someone from our own society and from a relatively recent time in history played by someone who doesn't look like him. That said, if it was an incredibly inaccurate movie with Lincoln as a character... Yeah, I'm responding to something else here. We missed something for him, but whatever. That said, if it was an incredible and accurate movie with Lincoln as a character, at this point, the movie would be so inaccurate anyways that it wouldn't matter. Just like how the Odyssey 2026 was heavily inaccurate to the time and place in many ways. Not how I would have done it, but once it is an inaccurate movie, the wrong race, for the most part, is just another thing. If it was a comedy... Kevin Hart would make a great Abe Lincoln, but I don't think that was your point. Okay, she said, I doubt Helen would be black, but there were probably African people in ancient Greece. It's not like Africa's real far away. Okay. See, maybe the older movies. I don't know what he's talking about. Oh, because he's commenting on a comment inside this thread, so it gets a little just confused. But we'll see if I said anything interesting there. Someone is commenting on my live by texting me rather than commenting in YouTube or Twitch or Facebook, unless he did comment and I just set it up wrong where I can't see it, in which case, well, my incompetency truly knows no bounds. Anyways, I appreciate the comment either way, person. Anyways, all right. I don't know what they're responding to, but let's see if I say they're good. No, this movie in particular, Nolan changed the story and characters in a way that made it have a more Christian and conservative message. I doubt he did it as a political goal, and the movie has other themes like PTSD, which was a big theme too. But it has an explicitly conservative message that does not align with the worldviews of ancient Greeks, but modern Americans. The story culminated in... All right, again, this is stuff we've covered. Again, if you missed that, this is in the actual thing I wrote, and so you can read that. So anything is possible when you lie, this guy said. I'm guessing he's calling me a liar, which is unfortunate. I said, me no lie. No, me no lie. Me honest. Call me an idiot if you must, but don't call me a liar. Any mistakes made are honest mistakes. Me no lie. Anyways, okay, this guy's about PTSD. Yes, it is. I mean, it's very clearly this has some PTSD. And that is a major theme of it. Of course, I'm focusing on the politics. This is a political channel. And Because all I heard about the movie before I saw it was how woke it was. And so to my surprise, the message was literally conservative and Christian, which is, oh my God, irony. Oh, irony. This guy said, glad I'm wearing a pair of rubber boots while reading this nonsense. I don't get the joke. I assume that means something. And I said, are they pink? And he said, Kitty Murphy's. Hello, drop Kitty Murphy's. I think they're saying they're Hello Kitties. Maybe Murphy's is a brand, or he just mistyped. Anywho, this guy said, the Odyssey is about defying God? Whatever do you mean? Which one? Are you referring to Zeus, Poseidon, Circe, Calypso, Hermes, Athena, who helps him along the way? So first of all, the movie talks about violating Zeus's law, and if he would have seen the movie, he would have known that. But anyways, the movie arguably has 0 actual gods in it, spoiler. A strong theme is him defying Zeus's law, which all started with a fake offering to Athena, the Trojan horse. But the movie really Christianizes Odysseus' personality in the movie's final message. It fits a lot more in with a modern Christian concerned about violating the sacred and God's wishes than ancient Greece. Nolan's The Odyssey is more about the sins of our society than ancient Greece. Cray cray. This guy thinks I'm cray cray, and I just gave him my explanation for why it's not cray-cray. And there it is, the stupidest thing I'll read today. And these days, that's a high bar. And you forgot, live with a blonde nymph doing drugs for 7 years, you potato. Okay, I don't know what point he's trying to make, but I mean, I guess doing drugs and living with a nymph is very unchristian. But guess what? While he did have lotus leaves, which are almost medicinal in the movie, they really didn't emphasize sex or anything in the movie. That he was having sex with her, and so that would actually be evidence of it being more Christian. That the lotus leaf, the drugs, the flower he did that affected him were almost medicinal and were given to him by someone tricking him. Again, not some anti-Christian thing, someone doing drugs for fun, and While in the poem, he's having sex with this woman over and over again. Here, if he does, that's off screen and they don't really show that or even really imply it. We just kind of know that he had sex with her from the poem. That's not really in the movie. So this is actually them making the movie more conservative in that they took out the sex and really limited the drugs. So opposite of the truth, you obviously haven't seen the movie. It was literally a Christian film full of... It wasn't literally a Christian film full of hymns and preachers. The message was conservative and Christian. The story was traditional. Ironically, for a movie that people screamed woke for, the dramatic end was the main character talking about being careful not to break society, obeying God's law, and respecting the sacred. This guy laughed, I think because he's laughing with me, I'm guessing, not against me. This again, me copy and pasted the basic explanation, which is in my piece, which is linked in the description for Facebook and YouTube and in the chat for Twitch. He said, sounds like cope. You know what? I'm pretty sure 99.9% of the time I've ever seen someone say, sounds like cope, they responding to someone who made basically somewhat reasonable counter arguments, and instead of actually dealing with them, they basically just make a personal insult and say, well, I'm just going to talk about what you're doing in the sense that why you're responding and just saying it's cope rather than actually dealing with the arguments. This is called being a dick. It's not okay. It's better just not to say anything. And anyways, I said just straightforwardly, I told them, dude, I'm just describing to you why what I'm claiming is true. It's no cope here, man. Come on. This guy said, no, look at me with my hat and beard. No. I imagine this face going, no. Anyways, I said, yes. You say no. I say yes. I really like that wrestler who would go, no. And then later he went, yes. He was one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. So I think I got that backwards. I think he said yes first and then later said no. Anyways, I said yes. And while what actually happened was ambiguous, the message was not. The story culminated in Odysseus dealing with his extreme guilt. The film emphasized that it wasn't simply the acts. All right, I've read this before, people. So rewind. I've read that before. I got to copy and paste. People say the same things over and over again. But that's me explaining very, very briefly for me why I'm saying what I'm saying. No, literally, all of Odysseus' problems started when he got blown off course, found the Clivesops, and blinded it, which they removed the super clever nobody deception and forethought he had, so the Cyclops couldn't tell anyone who did it. He's just talking about something they removed from the poem in that scene. Okay, which didn't work since his daddy Poseidon, god of the ocean, didn't appreciate how boy being crippled. The only thing they got right. Okay, he's complaining about things being different than the poem. That's what he's doing. When he says got right, he's saying, well, they changed the poem, and that makes it not work because it has to work like the poem. Well, the movie's considerably different than the poem. The themes and even what really happened is very different than the poem. And so these poem people, like, it's fine to have the taste to think, oh, it needs to be like the poem or something's wrong. Yeah, you can think that. But that's pure opinion. Not a, nope. Anyways, let's see. What else do they say here? Well, Circe was there and had magic, and his based moment when he returned to Ithaca to clear house. Everything else had so much creative liberties, including removing almost everything supernatural from the entire story for modern audiences, that it should have just been an original film inspired by that. Okay, he's I made a post very clearly talking about how, hey, this had a conservative message. The movie had a conservative message. And he just responds, nope, I don't like that they changed it from the poem. It got to be exactly like the poem. Harry Potter didn't say this at that moment. Nope, and the real books are so deeper. I love Harry Potter. Look at me with my Harry Potter glasses. Oh, I could do magic. Nope, if they don't do magic in the same way they did in the Harry Potter books, then it's illegitimate. You need to read the books. You know what? Snape killed Dumbledore. Deal with it. Okay, I don't even care what I said, that guy. The least interesting thing to me is they changed it from the poem. It's a legitimate opinion. And the few times I've actually read the book for the movie, I usually have like, oh man, they missed this cool thing in the book. But dude, it's a movie. You can't make a movie like a book, you know? And if you did, it would probably be horrible. All right. Also, I don't care. It's off topic, really. Okay, Burke was a liberal when it suited him, this guy said. I said, I admit, I'm not expert enough on Burke to know all his ins and outs. And I have a 2D Burke in my mind and refer to that. But I should probably read up on 3D Burke. One of these days, we'll see. The 2D Burke is nice because you have just a simple story about basic conservatism, and it's just true. And frankly, even a liberal should actually recognize the truth in basic conservatism. Make it all complicated, well then it's difficult. But there's something true about this 2D version, which I think is actually good to talk about. And remember, when we're thinking about politics and policy and change in society. Okay. A normal, intelligent man who must confront and smash Trumpish halfwits for 11 years. God's work. I don't know what he's talking about. But I like to pretend he's talking about me. And I do like to think I'm doing God's work, Now, do I believe in God? Well, I believe in the ultimate good, and some could say that's God. And I'd like to say that ultimate good spoke to me in my dreams and told me this is what I must do. And then I forgot those dreams. So I don't remember that dream. But I could have had a dream and forgot it because I forget most of my dreams. And so literally I am here under God's command, but I just don't remember God's command. But why I feel the impulse to do all this, despite the fact that it's doomed for failure, is because I am doing God's work. God wants me to do this. And you know what? God willing, I don't know what I was going to say next. Let's move on. Look again! Lib shit breath? You're a lib shit breath! Yeah! Lib shit breath! Now, is he saying that liberals, have the breath that tastes like shit? Or is it just lib shit is some insult to libs that is not literally about their breath, but more just like because they speak BS. I don't know. I think my analysis is pretty straightforward. It has nothing to do with, my personal political leanings. Really, it's pretty. I talked about things explicitly on the movie. Like this is why I decided to write this, because the movie, I'm not making some reading or stretch in the movie. I'm not reading between the lines. It very explicitly had a conservative message. So it's just, wow. Anyways, I consider myself a moderate, not a liberal. And if I was a liberal, I wouldn't consider myself a lib shit. Okay, they killed the story with faulty casting. No one wants trannies in movies. The transsexual in the movie had a pretty small part. It's weird because people complained about it so much, and I already knew she's trans. I looked at her in the movie and thought, yeah, she kind of looks trans. Or maybe I should say he. Whatever. He kind of looks trans. And then that did distract me from the movie a bit. But if people didn't complain about him a lot, I wouldn't have known in advance that person was trans. And I wonder if I even would have had that thought. It's kind of interesting. Anyways, they turn you on too much. You sound really stupid. Oh, this person's talking to Brian Miller. You sound really stupid. You sound stupid, Mr. Mayor. And as I said, they turn you on too much, because I really think the reason this guy, this is just a theory, I don't know this guy, but my hypothesis is the reason this guy doesn't like trannies in movies is because they just turn him on too much. And I'm saying there's anything wrong with that, but I think he thinks there's something wrong with that. And so that's why it bothers him. This guy said, that's a fancy way of saying you lack critical thinking. Well, it's never been my best moment, but without any rather elaboration, this is just more of a dickish insult. So, go fuck yourself, Jay. Fuck you! Anyways, this is me explaining. And of course, he didn't explain to me where I went wrong in my critical thinking. He just insulted me. What a dick. Oh, I'm going to give that a thumbs down. I'll give that a thumbs down because you're a butthole. You're a big butthole. You're a butthole. I don't appreciate your buttholeness. I forgive you, though. I am Jesus. What a hilarious load of horse shit. Thanks, Amy. Thanks for your input. It's funny when these pedo lovers pretend they have actually read the book. I don't know if this is referring to me or to other commenters. There's definitely was a witness that claimed Trump was with a young woman related to Epstein. We don't know if that's true, but maybe he's referring to that and to these other people who are probably pro-Trump, or if he's just calling me a pedo lover. I don't know. I don't know what INTR means. I don't care at this point. Very nice movie. Watching it in small pieces to prolong the pleasure. I don't know. This sounds like some sort of joke, but I don't get the joke. I don't even know why I thumbs upped it. Like, watching it small pieces to prolong the pleasure. I don't know if there's like a joke to get here, or if it's just like a silly statement and there's really nothing to get. But if there is something to get, I obviously don't have the critical thinking skills to get your jokes. You got to explain your jokes to me. You got to make the joke and then reply to your own comment and say, explain the joke to me. In fact, I'm gonna. This sounds like a funny comment. Is there a joke to get or just a silly comment? Question mark. This sounds like a funny comment. Is there a joke to get or just a silly comment? Okay. Waiting for Dennis now. Dennis, waiting for your explanation. Most likely, you're just going to call me a moron. That's mostly what happens on the internet. I don't know why I do this to myself. Why do I do this to myself? I know that people are just going to insult me and be mean to me and... Anyways, that is one particularly religiously, mentally handicapped take, if I do say myself, and I do... So I don't know if he's saying I'm religiously... Well, so I get that he's calling me mentally handicapped. Here's what I don't get. Is he saying I'm religiously mentally handicapped, as in he thinks I'm religious, and because of my religion, or partially because of it, it makes me have mentally handicapped takes? As in, because I'm religious, I read the movie in a super dumb way, as if I'm retarded, and it's because of my religion that happened? Or does he mean, well, this is a take about religion, and it's just a really stupid as if I'm retarded take, and the topic was religion? I don't really know which one he meant, but I just, gave my basic explanation, straightforwardly trying to, have a straightforward conversation, not just be mean. By the way, one thing Odysseus is talking about when he's talking about breaking society is just insulting people. If you want to disagree, that's fine. Explain your disagreement. But just insulting? Not cool. Not cool, Jason. All right. Let's see. Ben, all right. This guy said there was no concept of a Christian God in ancient Greece at the time the Odyssey was written. Your ignorance is painful. Yeah, in the very first sentence, there's the word movie. I'm clearly talking about the movie. Like, I'm explicitly talking about the movie, which was made in, it was filmed in like 2024, 2025, and it came out 2026. Literally, like, over 2,000 years after the birth of Christ. So, you think do people change movies and put modern concepts in ancient stories? Does that happen? Well, not according to this guy. All right, so we've seen that message before, and I probably said something. And this guy said, "Nice reverse and justify, idiot." Which, I'm just explaining to him. I'm like clarifying and explaining my point, and instead of like really dealing with it seriously, which you don't have to deal with seriously, just walk away. But instead of walk away or dealing it seriously, which are the both, non-dick options, he just says, he inaccurately describes what I did, nice reverse and justify, and then calls me an idiot. That's just not cool. This is what Odysseus is talking about. Not the only thing, but this type of dickish attitude, this is how we have a society, and it's good, and it's beautiful, and it's true, and we have trade, and we have language, and we break it. Because with these type of attitudes is how you support incompetent authoritarians who don't know what they're doing, and in the medium and long run could definitely destroy a society and are definitely damaging it in the short time, but in ways that, you kind of need an economist to help you look at, because there's a lot of variables at once. But anyways, he's talking about us. Mr. Odysseus was talking about us in the movie, specifically this guy. As far as I know, he lives a good life other than this, so still, this contributes. It all contributes. You can either be part of the solution, part of the problem. At least with this action, this guy is part of the problem. All right. This guy said, why do conservatives treat stupidity like it's an Olympic sport that they have to cheat to get gold in? So one thing is just insulting people, but also what's weird is I don't know if he's insulting the commenters, who seemed like they're probably generally, not always, but generally more conservative, or if he's just assuming I'm a conservative because I, basically parroted the message of the movie back to you, which was just on his face conservative. And he doesn't understand that that's true, and rather than really thinking about it, it's just going to insult me. So I don't know who's he insulting. Either way, it's a pretty lame thing to do. But all right, well, that was Reply Guyan with Lone Candle. It was a special episode because rather than me replying to others, this was people replying to me. Most of the replies were, utter nonsense, but I tried to explain to many of them, why I thought they were wrong, and they mostly just insulted me. But anyways, I lay my review and these points out in a Substack piece, Medium. It's on YouTube. There's also a podcast. The link to the YouTube is in the Facebook and YouTube description, as well as in the stream chat for Twitch. And in that video's description, there should also be a URL for the Medium, which is if you rather read it, you could read it there. So check that out. And do I have any final words? Truth is, I don't. I don't really have any final words. I'm sort of tired and hungry now, and my throat's a little sore. It's been sore, really. My allergies are hitting me pretty hard. If I'm straight with you, not that I would be unstraight about my allergies. I don't know why I would hide that. Unless like we're about to face in a competition, in which case at that point the dishonesty is justified by not showing my weakness. And maybe if you knew I was suffering in that way, you might know ways to take advantage of it. So I might hide that from you. But that's kind of a legitimate deception in a sport or something. But yeah, the movie had a final speech in it. I like final speeches. Some things about the movie, about what really happened, were ambiguous. But it literally had a final speech where he just straightforwardly said, hey, I violated the sacred. I broke Zeus's law. And I broke society. And we should have been more careful. Which is just straightforward, the very basics of Christian conservative. And it was very ironic in a movie where everyone told me it was woke. Also, I don't know if anyone else noticed this, but so Odysseus in the movie, talking about the movie here, it's a big, long movie that was supposed to be so woke, and he finally gets home. And he finally gets home and takes action against the suitors. He'd have a scuffle in this temple. But after the temple, when he does get home, he surveys the land, figures out what's going on. He's hiding. He's pretending to be a beggar. But when he finally decides to take action in a BA action way, you know what he does? He kills the black guy. Yeah, he killed the black guy first. So in this super woke movie, this movie I was told was so woke, Odysseus, the white man, killed the black guy first. So that's how woke the movie was. Yeah. I'm Lone Candle. Like me, comment me, love me. End stream.